Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajagacharya, Ashtodhara Shuddhashi, Srimad Isvangres, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So, chapter 25, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 25, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Pranjana. And text 1. Maitreya Vacha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Parhishadar Abhipujataha Pashyatam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Dedeharaha Maitreya Vacha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Parhishadar Abhipujataha Pashyatam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Dedeharaha Maitreya Vacha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Parhishadar Abhipujataha Pashyatam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Dedeharaha
Sandishya Bhagavan Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vashitam Rajaputranam Vashitam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Deharaha Tatraivantar Deharaha Maitreya Vacha Sandishya Bhagavan Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vashitam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Deharaha Maitreya Vacha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vashitam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Deharaha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vashitam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Deharaha Maitreya Vacha Iti Sandishya Bhagavan Vargishadara Vipujitaha Vashitam Rajaputranam Tatraivantar Deharaha
Maitreya Vacha. The gates. Okay.
During, especially during kids, having I can't help you if you don't, remember. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right. All right. Maitreya Vacha. The great sage Maitreya continued to speak. Iti, thus. Sandishya, giving instruction. Bhagavan, the most powerful Lord. Barhishadai, by the sons of King Barhishat. Abhipujataha, being worshipped. Pashyatam, while they were looking on. Rajaputranam, the sons of the king. Tatra, there. Eva, certainly. Antardade, became invisible. Haraha, Lord Shiva. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, in this way Lord Shiva instructed the sons of King Barishat. The sons of the king also worship Lord Shiva with great devotion and respect. Finally, Lord Shiva became invisible to the princes. Right, purport. This chapter contains a great lesson concerning the monarchical kingdom in the days of yore. When King Barishat was considering retiring from the royal duties, he sent his sons to perform austerities in order to become perfect kings for the welfare of the citizens. At the same time, King Barishat was being instructed by the great sage Narada about the material world and the living entity who wants to enjoy it. It is therefore very clear how the kings and princes were trained to take charge of a kingdom. Welfare activities for the benefit of the citizens were aimed at understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The human form of life is especially meant for understanding God, our relationship with Him, and our activities in His service. Because the kings took charge of the spiritual education of the citizens, both the king and the citizens were happy in Krishna consciousness. In this regard, we should remember that the monarchical hierarchy of Prachini Barishat comes from Maharaj Dhruva, a great devotee of the Lord and the most celebrated disciple of Narada Muni. King Prachini Barishat was then too much engaged in fruitive activities due to performing different types of yagyas. One can actually be promoted to higher planetary systems or to the heavenly kingdoms by performing various yagyas. But there was no question of liberation or going back home back to Godhead. When the great sage Narada saw that a descendant of Maharaj Dhruva was being misled by fruitive activities, Narada took compassion upon him and personally came to instruct him about the ultimate benediction of life, Bhakti Yoga. How Narada Muni indirectly introduced the Bhakti Yoga system to King Prachani Barishat is very interestingly described in this 25th chapter. Yeah, it looks like the next one. Tourist. Making noise.
Well, then we shut that one. I just want to make sure you guys get enough. You think so?
Om Jnanativedandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanamaditam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Makam Karidavachalam Pangam Langai Tegirim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurundiditaranam Vancha Kapatribishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavani Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, I'll read the translation again. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, in this way Lord Shiva instructed the sons of King Barishat. The sons of the king also worshipped Lord Shiva with great devotion and respect. Finally, Lord Shiva became invisible to the princes. So, yeah, we're starting this very, as Prabhupada says at the end of purport, very interestingly described pastime, or a very interesting pastime, here in the 25th chapter of King Puranjan. And, yeah, it goes 1 chapter, 2 chapter, 3 chapters, goes for some time. 4 chapters, 5 chapters. So, and Prabhupada explains later that this is a the Narada Muni is he takes compassion on this king, Prachani Barishat, and because he sees him entangled in material life and performing all of these Vedic sacrifices, and apparently, just entangled in material life. So he had compassion on him. He went to instruct him, and he instructed him, as Prabhupada explains later in the next few purports, in such a way, it was like an indirect way. What is it? Allegory, yeah. And he's speaking to him about, Narada Muni speaking to King Prachani Barishat about his own life, but he's using different names. So that's what we'll go through in this chapter and on, which is a very interesting way. And there's in the Bhagavatam, there's not many allegories. A lot of it's just real life stuff, or real life pastimes, historical accounts, but this is a case in which there's allegory by Narada Muni. So this is a great, you could say, mercy of a devotee, is that they take the trouble to extend themselves to others, just like Narada Muni's taken the trouble. He didn't have to go and instruct him, but he wanted to, out of great compassion. And another thing to note is that he felt, one of the reasons he felt compassion on Prachani Barishat was because he was a relative of Dhruva Maharaj. So, of course, devotees like to quote that, if somebody becomes a pure devotee, advanced devotee, then they liberate so many of their forefathers and maybe descendants or something. Yeah. So there's, so in other words, when somebody becomes a devotee, even persons who are connected to that individual, they benefit. So people who we are connected to karmically, such as our parents, grandparents, some people have children, whatever, family members, all different types of family members, friends, even people we're connected to, they benefit from us. And that also is important because a lot of the times in the process of Krishna consciousness, sometimes this idea of selfishness creeps in, like, okay, well, Krishna consciousness is important. I know it's important, but I also have some selfish desires I need to take care of. And sometimes those selfish desires can, be taken care of. Well, best is just to forget about them, move on completely. But, people leave Krishna consciousness and, okay, I'll be back, like they're out on Sankirtan, and, all right, I'll be right back, Prabhu, I'm just going to go to the bathroom, and then you don't see him for 20 years or something, you kind of took off, or, people do that actually. Like, we have guys here in the ashram, they said, oh yeah, I'll be back, I just need to go visit my family in Tennessee, I'll be back, and, don't see him for 20 years. Maybe take a long way back. Maybe I could start saying that because, well, not exactly 20 years. I don't see him for 15 years. I've been around, 15 years. So, yeah, that's our experience, that people leave and they don't come back for a while. And if they're fortunate, yeah, they do come back. So, yeah, these types of desires may creep within our consciousness. Very creepy. Creep in our consciousness. And in a way to, or you could say, a important thing to note in this regard is that, yeah, people are connected to us karmically, even just thinking of their benefit. Oh, if I remain in Krishna consciousness, I'll be able to benefit, family, friends, even just people karmically related to me that can't do what I'm doing. They just can't do it. There's many people like that, if you haven't noticed. There's people who cannot rise early. There's people who cannot chant Hare Krishna. There's people who cannot give up, some of the principles, 4 regulative principles. And I'm sure some of you have noticed some of your family are like that, or your friends are like that. They just can't give it up. And there may be some sincerity there within them somewhere, in terms of God consciousness, or they may have some attraction to Krishna consciousness. But a lot of the times, again, they just can't. They can't do, what you're doing or what we're doing. So even just for their benefit, okay, I have some selfish desires, but all right, well, what about them? Stay in Krishna consciousness because of them. What to speak of our own benefit, what to speak of, we're not just focused on benefiting our little group of family and friends, but if we are able to stay in Krishna consciousness, we could benefit so many people, directly, indirectly. So yeah, this is being brought up that Narada Muni is showing compassion on Prachani Barishat. Simply one of the reasons because he's a descendant of Dhruva Maharaj. So, and so yeah, he's going to instruct him about the material world and the living entity who wants to enjoy it, and how it's a misconception. And he's going to make things very clear for King Prachani Barishat. He's gonna, you could say, I would say like, slap him around a little bit, wake him up. Hey, wake up, wake up. Throw some water on him, wake up, by his instructions. And this is actually the real benefit of sadhu sangha. The benefit of sadhu sangha is that by instructions of sadhus is that they cut these particular difficult attachments within our heart by their instructions, just like that verse in 11th canto, right? Tata duk sangam utsija. What is it? Buddhima. Uktibi, yeah. So these strong attachments within the heart, by associating with sadhus, they cut it by their strong words. And in that 11th canto, there's not a purport for that verse. Yeah, but in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the instructions and the section, I believe in the Adi Lila, where the spiritual masters, first chapter, Prabhupada gives a purport on this verse. So it's an important verse. So luckily Prabhupada gave us a purport. And this is, many devotees have this experience that just by a few words, maybe even one word, 2 words, a few words, devotees just completely change somebody's life. And it's not easy to change somebody's life, but a few strong words or a few gentle words, just a few words can change somebody's life. I gave the example before, but I talked to this devotee more about his particular experience, and he added some more details, which I thought was beneficial for me, and also maybe others. That this particular devotee, before he was a devotee, he was extremely addicted to heroin. Extremely addicted. And it is one of the most addicting things in the world, heroin. And one of the reasons, because of the high it gives you, or the low, or whatever, however you want to describe it, because it gives kind of a numbing effect. But it only lasts a few hours. It doesn't last all day. Then you got to get your next fix. So, and it's hard. If you got lots of money, okay, but if you don't got lots of money, then you have to get into what? Take a guess. Crime. Specifically, distribution, but specifically stealing. To get it, you steal something, you sell it, pawn it, and you get some money. So, this devotee was telling me that he'd go to his family member's house and they'd be going, "Uh-oh, here's this guy again. Watch out, lock the doors," And he said he'd go to his mother's house sometimes, and how mom this, and then she would, be in the kitchen or something. He'd look around, grab the TV, and run out, stuff like that. So he was doing that with his family members, but his mother especially, he's my son, and I'm not going to tell him not to come back. He could come back. All the other families were like, "All right, buddy, get lost." But the mother was, So he continued like this, and it was difficult because he said that within his heart, deep down inside, he always wanted to give it up. When he got more into it, when he was addicted, he was praying to God, "Please help me, please help me, please help me." But still, he would do it, and he would do it, and he would do it. And then he would always regret it afterwards. He'd always regret it. "Oh, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? Why did I steal this? Why did I shoot that other needle? Why? So he was really struggling with it. But then, somehow or other, he managed to control himself to some degree. And then he started going to a clinic where they give you methadone, which is pretty much like heroin, kind of like heroin. So they give it to people who are trying to wean themselves off of heroin. But the thing is, some people take it their whole life. So he was going there every day. And then you take whatever, 100 grams, 20 grams, 10 grams. And I was asking him, was there a big line? And he said, "Well, I would go there really early in the morning. I'd be like the first, So he was doing this, and he was kind of weaning himself off, and then he walked by this social worker guy, one of the guys who worked there, and the guy was talking with some woman about how, the woman was now taking only 20 grams a day, and it lasts you all day apparently, the high. Then you go back the next morning. So keep on doing that. So then he was feeling inspired. Okay, I'll reduce. So he was reducing, but he didn't really have an idea of giving it up. He just, I'm comfortable. Come here every day. I'll pay. They'll give me, and I'll be high all day, and I'll come back the next day. And I don't know if you have to pay or not, but maybe it's a government thing, or probably government thing. But he had no real intention of giving up. He was just comfortably numb, right, on heroin or methadone. So then one of the social workers, they call him over. They said, "Come here," And then the guy like chided him, He looked him in the eye and said, "Are you gonna be doing this your whole life? You're gonna like come in every morning and just keep on doing this your whole life?" And then this man, he thought about what he said and he said, "You know what? He's right. Why should I be doing this my whole life?" And then he reduced the and then he just gave it up. And ever since then, he was free. Got free. Freedom at last. So I said this before in a talk some time ago, but the thing that I spoke with him recently about the phenomenon of him praying to God about it, because he said he was praying to God like regularly, "Please free me, please free me, please free me." And then I was asking him, "Well, how do you see this, that you were praying so much but God wasn't freeing you? So how do you see that? How do you perceive that?" Because a lot of times people say if they pray and then God doesn't answer, it's like, well, So he said that, which very intelligent actually. He said that, I was praying and God was trying to help me all along. He was trying to help me this way, that way, family members, friends, with my own conscience, but I was just too, in essence, I was just too foolish or too weak, to really take the help, right? God helps those who help themselves. So in other words, he wasn't putting the blame on God. He was putting the blame on himself, that I wasn't able to do it, although he was trying to help me so many times. And he gave a very good example, which devotees have heard before. And the example is that there was once a man, and there's different versions of this little story, but there's once a man, and there's a big flood in the town, right? Or there was about to be. I'm going to tell it like this. There was about to be a big flood in the town. So, somebody said, "Hey, Mr. whatever, George, there's going to be a big flood in the town, so, hop in my SUV and we'll head up north. We'll get out of here." And the guy said, No, that's okay. I really appreciate your gesture, but God will protect me. I'm a faithful man. God will protect me. No problem. And the guy said, "Okay, fine. What can I do?" Some people do that. They just stay in their house when there's big disasters and stuff. So, the flood came, sure enough, and then he, was trying to save himself or depend on God or whatever. He used some of his intelligence. So what he did is he went on his roof, flood, and the guy came by in a boat and said, "Hey, man, jump in the boat, I'll save you." And the guy said, No, that's okay, I'll wait for God to save me, God will save me. So then he continued, and then it was getting worse and worse, and then a helicopter came by, making the helicopter, and then threw a rope down and said, "Grab the rope, man, we'll pull you up." The guy said, No, God will save me. God will save me. So then he drowned. They died. Right? That's a logical conclusion. And then he was there, entering heaven or whatever, and he asked God, he said, "I was so faithful to you. I was just, so many people came to try to help me, but I was just dependent on you. So, why didn't you save me?" And then God said, "Well, I sent the guy in the SUV, I sent the boatman, I sent the guy in the helicopter. What do you want me to do? I sent so many people, So he gave that example, that he sent so many people so many times, but somehow or other, just wasn't accepting it. But it finally worked. After all of his endeavor, "Please help me, God, please help me, God. I'm really struggling, and regretting, please help me." So after all of his struggle and his prayer, his sincerity, praying to God so many times, and Krishna, trying to help him so many times, finally it went through. The mercy came in the form of that social worker. He said, "You going to do this your whole life?" And then he gave it up. So, so I thought that was, nice. A little bit more elaboration upon his thought process through his journey of getting free. So similarly, I mean, okay, it's not heroin, it may be something else. I mean, people are addicted to so many things. The world is a world full of addiction. If you're not addicted to this, you're addicted to that. And similarly, whoever it may be, devotees or whoever, I mean, there's lingering attachments, which you could say are like addictions. Attachment means what? You're attached to something. What is material attachment? Material attachment means we're attached to something that is foolish, that is harmful for us. Just like heroin is foolish and harmful for him. So material attachments, whatever it may be, are foolish and harmful. So to be attached to that means to be addicted. So we could relate to this story to any type of material attachment that we could try, and then whether it's a sadhu social worker or another, whatever type of form of sadhu, by their mercy, Krishna's endeavor, our endeavor, we could become free. This is what Prachanibarhishat is going to do. He's going to come, Narada Muni is going to do. He's going to come and he's going to perform a heart operation on Prachanibarhishat, remove all the things in his heart through his words. And help him. And liberate him, actually. So, and then, Prabhupada mentions about this training, how he's sending the sons to perform austerities. So, this training in austerities and in Krishna consciousness, Krishna conscious austerities, this is the age-old process for qualifying human beings to be human beings. Qualifying human beings to interact with, to be, productive contributors to human society in relation to Krishna consciousness. So in other words, the traditional thing is brahmacharis are trained, women are also trained in a particular way, but brahmacharis are trained, and some of them move on to household life, and through that brahmachari training, it's actually the basis, that training is the basis, the foundation upon which all other, the strength one has to, you could say, be successful in any other ashram. So in other words, grihastha, vanaprasanyas, whatever it may be, this brahmachari training is very important. So those of us who are brahmacharis, specifically younger brahmacharis, we should, take it seriously that this is the time to be trained. And whatever we're going to do in our future, we will be successful largely based on this training we're accepting. That's another thing we need to accept, the training in different ways. So this is going all the way back, however long this was. Very long time ago. How long was this? This whole account, how long? Yeah, millions of years ago. So, brahmacharya, long-standing tradition. I mean, we're a little different than the brahmacharis in the Bhagavatam. I think they grow their nails and wear deer skin and stuff like that, but we're not exactly going to do that. We're not going to see Mukunda walking down for breakfast, wearing his deer skin, But the principles are the same, that, training, education, performing austerities. And in this way, it's not that we could just contribute when we're done with our brahmachari training, but we could also contribute as brahmacharis. We should. And also, Prabhupada on different note, on different times, he said, brahmacharis, it's not just meant for young men or young boys. There's also elderly brahmacharis, and many in India, and so. if that's the choice. So anyways, there's just some points. I think the time's kind of running out. So does anybody have any question? Yes. Or comments? Microphone's coming.
Well, I have something you could elaborate on, and I have a question, and you
Okay.
can figure out what you want to do.
All right.
You were making the point that ashram life means a willingness to be trained. We accept that's why I'm here.
Yes.
But, you know, we get people who think, well, who are you to tell me what to do? And why are you always picking on me? And, you know, why?
Yeah.
So that, you know, but if you accept that, hey, I'm here to be trained. I'm here to be molded.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm clay and I'm meant to be molded into a pot, and I argue with the craftsman, hey, why are you pushing me around? Well, that's kind of the relationship. It's kind of I'm trying to help you become what you're supposed to be. So you could expand on that when you want to,
Okay.
or whatever you want to do.
All right.
But my question is, because you kind of hear a flavor of this, you were saying that many people were, like the example, God sent many, agencies to save the person. And this heroin addict had heard many other messages and tried. And then, but there was just a point in time that even a few words, it just clicked.
Yeah.
And it says in Bhagavad Gita that you have to have sufficient pious credit, reaction to sinful activities eradicated, and a sufficient stock of pious they can take to devotional service.
Yeah.
Because we meet smart people. They're smart, very smart, materially, but they just don't get it. You
Yeah.
get these big scholars that study, the writings of the Goswamis, but never get it,
Yeah. Amazing.
So then what about, okay, I'm just not ready. And when Krishna wills it, when I'm ready, then I'll become a devotee. In the meantime, hey, I just don't have the strength, the energy, the ability, so I'm just rowing my boat down the road, and when Krishna wills it, I'll surrender.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
All right. Well, I mean, practically, yeah. A lot of the times, there's cases. It's very like complicated. You could say, like the human, consciousness, and them, reconnecting with God. It's a very complicated thing going on. Actually, I mean, in many ways, it's simple, but people make it complicated, in the sense that, like, I think Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said something like this: causeless unwillingness to surrender to Krishna. Really don't want to surrender. So, yeah, they may be very intelligent and, this and that, but, yeah, that's one thing. The piety may not be there, a little bit too sinful. But a lot of the times, like you're saying, okay, when Krishna wills it, I'll surrender. Well, Krishna's always willing. He's always there, But a lot of the times, that's why you say have these threefold miseries, because the threefold miseries are like reminders that, okay, this isn't my, it's not working. So a lot of the times people need like a crisis in their life, to help them, encourage them. So like sometimes devotee would say, okay, on one hand you got Lord Chaitanya, or he's got his arms out, come to my loving embrace. On the other hand, you have Durga Devi, she's with her, trident, get going, move, So, yeah, I think that's a lot of the times the case. But, yeah, sometimes people don't necessarily need a lot of that, from Durga. But a lot of the times these people are extremely pious and, somehow or other through, unknown devotional service, or so they have this past life, so many past lives they've developed, over time, and they're just kind of ready, all right, I'm ready to go. You don't have to, like, prod them so much. I mean, sometimes you see that in the ashram, too. It's like, sometimes people, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to go. And sometimes you need a little bit more prod. So, yeah. I don't know if anybody else has any other comment about that particular. But, yeah, in terms of training, yeah, like you said, okay, we're here to be trained, but then people say, okay, well, they say, oh, why are you giving me a hard time, or back off, or, I know what I'm doing, Well, one thing in relation to that is that's why, education is the best when one is young, The younger the better. I mean, best like really young, 5 years old, and then on. because you can really mold them, educate them. And then, one becomes older, and it becomes more difficult a lot of the times. And the example's given of like a bamboo rod, when it's when it's green, you could kind of, bend it, But then when it's fully grown, it's kind of like, so, but that doesn't mean that, okay, if somebody comes to Krishna consciousness later, then, they can't, take to it. They can take to it. But sometimes, in some cases, it's more difficult. But yeah, so a lot of the times, the youngest devotees that are going to join are, 19? Younger is 18, I joined when I was 18. But, so that may help, them being younger. But whatever the case is, people who are in the ashram, they should understand that, I'm here to be molded. I'm not here just to whatever. I'm here to be molded, And you'd say a good disciple makes a good guru, And Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya, right? He said, Yadi Dekataka Krishna Badesh. Everyone should become guru. Wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna, this would become a guru. So to be a good disciple means to accept that discipline. Disciple means discipline. And, we should take it that we are in a particular spot due to so many things. You could say maybe our sincerity, or you could say our karma, or so many different things come into play. So we should say, okay, I'm here for a reason. And I have certain people around me for a reason. And I have certain people trying to educate me or train me for a reason. And we should take advantage of that. And see that, okay, the persons who are trying to help me or trying to educate me or trying to train me, I should see what I could learn from them. How to advance. And everybody has that in their life. Everybody has like gurus or people who are training them, educating them, and even the materialistic people, they have their financial gurus or whatever. It's people trying to help them advance. And that really molds one in terms of who they become later on in life. Just like, of course, Prabhupada's a different case because, he's coming from the spiritual world and, that. But Prabhupada did have personalities in his life who influenced him, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his mother, Prabhupada's mother, Prabhupada's father. He had certain personalities. Prabhupada's, professors. There's certain they didn't influence in a mundane way, but he actually had some affection for some of his professors. They were religious and things like that. So, say influence Prabhupada. So we all have that too. We have certain persons who are, So we should take it as, okay, this is Krishna. Krishna's given me this opportunity, and what can I learn? Not like, okay, well, this is like difficult, and what's going on here, and but kind of be humble, and so. Anyways, I hope that if there's any other comment or question, comment.
Both answers. Just you were saying about which is an accurate analogy. The bamboo green can be bent when it's no, that's. It's in one of Prabhupada's purports. But there was an artist, Devahuti, living in Los Angeles. And she was about 40 years old. And she was having a lot of trouble living in the ashram. Everybody else was like you say, 18 to 24. So 40 years old, forget it, And the temple president was talking, anyway, without much more backstory. The temple president said it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
I've heard that one. But I've never heard the other part. Anyone know the other part? Once they learn, they never forget. So the temple president, Dayananda, said, it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. And Prabhupada said, but once they learn, they never forget. And Prabhupada said sometimes when people are young, they easily come and they easily give it up. They easily jump in and they easily jump out. He said an older person may take longer to jump in, but once they jump in, it's a solid commitment. They're not going to jump out. So just a little something for the oldsters,
Nice.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there was.
I'm not discounting what you said at all.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, there's two devotees. One was a disciple of Tamal Krishna Goswami. Her name was Kirtida. She passed away years ago. But she actually came to Krishna. I think she was, 50 or something, but, she's a little older. But, devotees have, written books about her, give lectures about her. They, celebrate her, appearance every year, disappearance, In other words, she became very advanced in a very short time because she came to the Dallas temple and she was diagnosed with some type of cancer because she lived this really just reckless life. She was a nurse. She, worked really hard as a nurse. And then she wouldn't drink water, practically just drink Coca-Cola all the time. So it really messed up her stomach, practically no water. There's a lot of Coca-Cola and soda and junk, She was a single woman. So she came to the temple and she said she was going to commit, she was thinking about committing suicide. She was so depressed. And then she met Tamal Krishna Goswami. And, time went on. She got initiated by him. And, over time she got this cancer. And then she went to Vrindavan and she was going there to pass away. And then somehow or other she got better. Really better, she really strong. She was taking devotees out like Dinabandhu Prabhu does on parikrama, telling them about holy places. It was really interesting. And I think she does that a few times, goes back to London, goes back to Dallas, but still this cancer is still there. So eventually gets her. And then she's in Dallas, and Tamal Krishna Goswami told her, just stay in Dallas and leave your body in Dallas. Because it will be very uplifting for the community because you're very advanced and that it won't really, it doesn't matter if you're, Vrindavan's all pervading, so just stay here and be a good example. So it really brought the community together, and they're really, Kirtida. And then, she left her body, but it was amazing, life, and she came later. There's another devotee like that, Archa Vigraha, my spiritual master's, one of his disciples, she passed away. Similar story, she came quite elderly, 50 or something, in South Africa. And she came down with some cancer, but she became very, very advanced. And she went to Vrindavan and under his instruction and went there to pass away. And she had so many devotees visiting her, reading to her, this and that. And nice devotees. He had Bibi Govinda Swami, Tamal Krishna Goswami, my spiritual master, Boyjan Prabhu. And they're all reading to her from whatever the book is, Lalita Madhava, or whatever, the play with Krishna, and they're taking different roles, reading to her, and helping her every day. My spiritual master was there to see her off, and then she had a request from to him, I think a bit of a request about she wanted to create a Back to Godhead clinic. Which is like a hospice, which is there now in Vrindavan for devotees. And she was the inspiration behind that. So she was successful. So persons could come late and be successful. Yeah.
We have Nam Kirtan and Yamuna. And he, Indian, coming from India, but they were living here, and he had become an alcoholic. He was a school teacher, but he was an alcoholic and couldn't give it up and so many things. And he saw the devotees, Dharma Setu and devotees. This is, I don't know when we're talking 1980, something like that. He saw the devotees chanting downtown.
Pious Dharma Setu.
Isn't it? With Dharma Setu, yeah. And he said, they're doing it, and I can't do it?
Oh,
what kind of,
Indian,
what kind of nonsense is this? And he actually gave it up, and they moved into the temple. Even though they had 4 sons who ultimately became initiated devotees, but they had big houses to live in, and they got a little tiny apartment and lived right next to the temple. She taught so many of the devotees how to cook. He would go on Harinam every day. They were fed. She's still around. I don't know how old she is. She's in Vrindavan. But that's another example.
And he passed away.
He passed away. Yeah.
Interesting.
But on one hand, you don't want to wait that long because you might miss the bus, You don't want to think, oh, well, I'll take it up when I'm 50 or 70. But like you say, there are some good examples. Never too late.
Yeah, I use this sometimes, like when I'm talking with Indians. I say, "Hey, you're born in Bharatvarsha. You're born in Bharatvarsha. So many sages, saints, Krishna, so many incarnations. They all appeared there. This is a holy land. Prabhupada would say, like spiritual blood is flowing through the Indians. So, hey, you're born in Bharatvarsha. I'm born in America." And I said, yeah, I'm born. Well, I was born in Hayward, California, a little bit more high class in Oklahoma. Not really, though. It's by Oakland. It's by Oakland. But I tell him, I was born in America, so I'm chanting 16 rounds. I'm following principles. So if I could do it, then you could also do it. And I said, I'm not anybody special. You could do it too. So I don't know how well it works, but that's the point I use. Yeah. So, all right. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.